Major Hurricane Lee is anticipated to make its turn to the north. As it approaches land, where will it make landfall? Find out that and more next. Alrighty, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Nate, and welcome back to another weather forecast discussion, this time for September 11th, 2023. Now, my thoughts are with those who have been impacted by this day, of course, 22 years ago. But with that being said, let's get started with today's weather forecast discussion. We're going to start out simple here with the convective outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. This basically gives you on a scale of 1 to 5 as to how significant severe weather is anticipated to be today. You can see we have a bunch of these green areas. This light green is basically a thunderstorm risk. This dark green is a 1 out of 5, and this yellow is a 2 out of 5. So if you're in any of these yellow areas or any of these towns that are located here at the bottom part of your screen, you guys might want to watch out for some strong severe weather heading into the early morning hours tomorrow. There is the small chance for tornadoes, 2% chance of a tornado within a 25-mile radius, so that is going to be something to watch out for as this continues to move about, as well as the risk for strong damaging winds and upwards of hurricane force, and of course, 2-inch sized hail or larger within a 25-mile radius, indicated in this little hatched risk zone right here in this black circle. So something to watch out for if you live in those areas. Definitely going to be something to want to note. Now, I also want to give you guys the latest update here on Hurricane Lee. This is, once again, a major hurricane, but it is also expanding its wind field significantly. And this is the one thing that we talked about a couple days ago as to how this is going to continue to do that on its march up the coast and try to pass Bermuda. And now as we get in towards the 5-day range here of our forecast circle, you can see how large the cone of uncertainty actually stretches to where the center of Lee could actually move within one place of this spot. So it could make landfall over here, over in Cape Cod. It could move over into Maine. It could move over into Nova Scotia. So this is going to be something to watch out for as this continues to move about. But realistically speaking, how we figure out where this is going to make landfall is all going to be determined based off of when this thing starts to shift off towards the north. When it starts to get pulled off and it starts to make that turn off towards the north, then that is when we're probably going to kind of figure out as to where this thing's going to go. If it turns a little bit sooner than anticipated, which would be sometime along the Tuesday night into Wednesday morning area, we could probably see it get a lot closer to Bermuda and probably make landfall over here and towards areas near Nova Scotia. However, if it doesn't start to turn and it starts to wait until the Wednesday afternoon hours, then this will probably start to head over towards the Cape Cod general vicinity. So New England is going to have to watch out regardless. I really do believe that this storm is going to get larger and larger on its movement towards the north, on its approach to the north, which means that as this thing gets closer and closer, much of these areas here in the Northeast could potentially see some, at minimum, small impacts from Hurricane Lee. But the big thing to note here is that this thing continues to strengthen. It'll continue to be a major hurricane up until we get in towards Thursday. We're talking about Saturday into Sunday as to when this thing is probably going to be making landfall over here in towards the eastern portions of North America. But one thing that is for certain is that here is some of the arrival times of some of the tropical storm force winds. We're probably talking sometime along the late evening hours here on Friday as to when it is going to start to become possible. And then as it continues to move further and further north, we can expect those probabilities to be a little bit higher and higher. So of course, you can see the probabilities down here at the bottom right-hand part of the screen. Kind of take a note of that as that continues to move about, and you can see where the highest likelihood is located. Now, one thing that is for certain here is that Lee has been doing a lot of weird stuff as of lately. It is strengthened to a Category 5 hurricane last week. It weakened significantly to a Category 2. And now it's a Category 3 and probably could be a Category 4 here over the next couple of days. And the main reason for that is because it hasn't really had a well-defined eye shape up once again. It's been trying to expand its CDO, if you will, which is basically a lot of these clouds that are around it. It's trying to become fully uniform and surround itself with all that thunderstorm activity. And we lost a little bit of satellite for a little bit, but you can see on that latest jump, you can see how pretty widespread those clouds are. I'll actually pause it right here. And you can see that this is starting to become very uniform at this stage. We still have a little bit of dry air that's in some of these spots, but you can also see some very strong thunderstorm activity here within this higher values of this gray and almost pink. So pretty strong convective towers that are going to start to try and form here near the center. If we see more of these, we could probably continue to anticipate that this thing is going to intensify further. Now, I wanted to point out the reconnaissance data here, and you can kind of see how things move about. And I want to show you guys up here in this line graph. Now, for reference, the lines, these blue dots, is the winds that the hurricane hunters found as they went through this tropical system. And you can see that it takes this huge dip just like that. And that's because they actually made a pass through the eye to where the winds were pretty calm. So the higher the dots are, the stronger the winds. And you can see if we were to actually place a line from here over to the side, that's a little bit north of 80 knots, which would be about 90 miles per hour, maybe 95 mile per hour winds that they found in the last pass that they had, which was sometime around 3:30 in the afternoon. So they're going to probably send another one out. They're probably going to see if Lee is going to continue to try and intensify further. But as of right now, it seems that Lee is kind of just trying to reorganize itself before it could potentially try to intensify further. So let's start talking models here. Let's start seeing possibilities and probabilities. And we can see here, this is from the Euro or the EPS. This is the ensemble members that basically form a bunch of opinions. All these little red numbers that you're going to see here in a bit is all the different possibilities as to where the center of Lee could potentially head off towards. So you can see as this moves about, the turn starts to occur sometime around Wednesday morning into late Wednesday afternoon. And you can see this thing starts to really march its way across up north. And look at how widespread it is. Sometimes the models think that it's going to start to make landfall here on Friday night into Saturday morning. Others think the storm is still going to be all the way back near Bermuda, heading in towards Saturday morning as well. And by the time we get towards, I would say, Sunday afternoon is when this final latest possibility starts to really make its way over. By then, it will probably be a lot weaker than it would originally be if it were to make landfall a little bit sooner. And the reason being for that is because usually when you take a lot more time to be over cooler waters, the storm starts to kind of deteriorate a little bit more and the intensity isn't as significant. However, if you start to move over it rather quickly and you start to accelerate off into a general vicinity quicker, it has less time for it to weaken, which means a stronger storm. But regardless, you can kind of see the probabilities all the way from Cape Cod all the way over into Nova Scotia. That is what we're anticipating as the potential landfall here. For right now, the general guidance says that it's going to be somewhere in between the two on the western sides of Nova Scotia, and it'll just pass to the east of Cape Cod. But that is based off of the Euro. The GEFS, however, you can see this starts to kind of move on through here. And this is going to start to kind of knock on the door here. We're going to talk about some ensemble members talking about, once again, the turn be sometime around Wednesday afternoon into Thursday morning. This is going to continue to march its way off towards the north. But the GEFS actually thinks that this is going to move a little bit further towards the east than what the Euro says. So it's going to be basically a little bit interesting to see as to which one could potentially be possible. Could we be talking about a little bit more of a Euro solution, which moves a little bit further west, or a GFS solution, or a GEFS solution that moves a little bit further east? Now, I also want you guys to pay attention. You can see there's another system that's going to start to form here right around the same time period. The Euro even says that as well, and that's because this is going to be our next system. Our next system to worry about is going to start to move on through, and it's going to move off of the coast of Africa. As a matter of fact, the National Hurricane Center has already put a 60% chance of formation over the next 7 days. We are anticipating this to kind of take a similar track to Lee and probably move up the coastline as well. We're not going to talk about that too much here today, but we do want to keep you guys informed that we do potentially have another tropical system on the way, and we're probably going to want to continue to watch out for what that thing could potentially do later on in the month. I think the one thing that is consistent here is, as I mentioned, this system is going to start to become very much so expansive. We can take a look a little bit earlier. You can see this is what the model thinks the storm is going to look like down here before it even gets to Bermuda. Notice how compact and how small it is. And when it starts to race its way across towards the north, look at how large it becomes. Look at that. Very large storm, expands from one side to another. You can see all these isobars that are tightly compacted around each other, meaning there's a lot of difference in pressure and wind right around the system, and this is going to continue to just be rather expansive. So practically anywhere over here in New England, as well as portions of Nova Scotia and eastern Quebec, as well as areas of New Brunswick, is going to want to watch out for what this system does. Depending upon where it goes, as well as when it makes landfall, is going to be really what our answer is going to be. But I think that also the main thing to note, and this is something to kind of keep in mind as this thing moves about, is that first off, we have a lot of time. So I want to go ahead and inform you guys, as I mentioned in my previous video, you're probably going to want to go ahead and start preparing now, just on the off chance that something does happen. We're not anticipating this to be a super significant storm, not like a category 3, 4, or 5 upon landfall. Probably a category 1. Category 1 is what most are thinking as to how strong the system will be upon landfall. But because of how expansive this is, we're probably talking about winds that could expand way further out besides where the eye is. And because of that, we're also going to want to watch out for the potential of some storm surge. So if you're along the coastline, it's probably a good idea for you to not be along it when this system does make landfall. We're talking Nova Scotia regardless. We're talking areas here along Maine, along areas here in the Cape Cod and the New England general vicinities, and even on the northern side of Long Island, we could potentially see some winds on the backside going over the Sound back over into those areas. So it could definitely be a thing to watch out for. We'll continue to monitor it. Now, I said I wouldn't mention it too much, but I said I would give you guys just a general idea as to what we could be talking about. There's our new storm that's probably going to be forming sometime along the 17th, 18th, and 19th. The system's going to move to the northeast of the Caribbean. Once again, very similar track to Lee, and then according to the GFS, actually moves north along the coastline as well. So we're not saying that this is a set in stone type storm. It looks like it is going to form, but where it goes beyond the Lesser Antilles is a huge question mark as of this time, which means that for the folks at home that are watching this and are saying, oh, well, we're going to get round 2 of this, not quite yet. We're not talking about this, not quite yet, as to where specifically this can go. We're still trying to figure out if this is actually going to turn off the coast or if it's going to continue to head across to Florida as of right now, let alone if it can even head further south or further north. So right now, the big thing here is that this is going to take a similar track to Lee to start out with. What it does as it approaches the islands, the Windward Islands, is still up in the air, all right? But other than that, right now, if you're in New England, if you're in New Brunswick, if you're in Nova Scotia, if you're in Newfoundland, you guys definitely need to watch out for the system. It'll start to approach here sometime along Friday and into Saturday. And of course, if it does make landfall as a hurricane, we will be live on the channel. So make sure you guys stay tuned to all of that. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications, share this with friends and family and on social media. Also follow me on social media. Link will be in the description down below. Stay safe, everyone. I will catch you guys for tomorrow's upload. So peace out, everyone.